Welcome back to Anna and the Aardvark. We are back, people. We've been away for a while, but we're back. Welcome if you're a newbie, welcome if you're returning. Everybody's welcome here today. Excuse the voice, bit tired, bit croaky, but there we go. So let me explain. 2 months ago, when I made the last video, I let it run like I normally do for about a month. And then I was thinking to myself, oh, I should be doing a video about now. But in the first week of the next month, I was going on an adventure. And I wanted to do the adventure and then come home and tell everybody about it. So I didn't make the last vlog that was scheduled, anybody know? So I decided to wait until I got back from my adventure. And it really was an adventure because it wasn't really planned long before I went. But I'm glad I went. It was brilliant. So what have I done? I went to Canada. Yeah, I know, miles away. I went to Montreal, and two reasons. First of all, I've always wanted to go to Canada. I'm not interested in the United States of America, just Canada, thank you very much. And the flights were covered by flight vouchers from cancelled flights during the first 2 years of COVID. So thank you, Daddy, for that. And it was fabulous, absolutely fabulous. It was a gamble because of my health and energy, and you know, traveling long haul with ME is always a bit of a risk, but it actually worked okay. I'm pleased to say. I think probably the hardest part about getting to Canada was getting from where I live to Heathrow in London, which is on the other side of the country. There was a lot of travelling on trains and various, you know, cabs and all sorts of things. But I did it. And I was sitting on that long haul flight. We were setting off at tea time on a Thursday evening. And I was just sitting there and I was thinking, you've actually managed to do this all on your own. And this is fantastic. This is going to be amazing. And it was. It really, really was. When I got to Canada, well, actually before I got to Canada, anytime that I fly, I always get special assistance. And that is because I panic when I'm in crowds. I really don't do well in crowds at all. But if you go special assistance, then they either take you through a quiet route through an airport, which is absolutely fabulous. Bristol's really good for that. Or they just clear an area, you know, they just walk along going, excuse me, and create this large expanse of space for you to walk along in. Nobody rushes you. They help you put all your stuff through security. It's very calm. It's very, you know, it just is a lot easier than going in with the general crowd. And I'll come back to a guy called Raphael at the end of the story, but Raphael in Canada, top man. Anyway, so let me tell you about the other end. I had booked a cab to meet me off the plane, which all worked very well, except that he said he was standing right outside, and he wasn't right outside. He was right outside and across the road, which to me is not right outside. Anyway, eventually I found him because I was walking around shouting, Patrick, the cab driver. And eventually we banged into each other, and there he was. He took me to the apartment. Now, I booked a studio apartment, which is a fancy way of saying a bedroom with a kitchen in it. And I booked it in the gay village for two reasons. A, it was economical to do so. And B, I thought being in the gay village, I mean, this would be amazing. I haven't been out on a gay scene for years now. And I was really, really excited and looking forward to that. However, slight problem. The gay village in Montreal, it's down at heel, and nothing really happens during the day, whether that's in the week or at the weekend. I can't tell you if it opens at night because the area was overrun with homeless people and drug addicts and very aggressive beggars. And that was just during the day. And I have enough street smarts to know that if that's what it's like in the day, it's going to be worse at night. And there was no way I was going to go and explore at night on my own, because it didn't feel safe enough to do that. And in a way that probably saved me a lot of energy, because if I go out, you know, I'm going to be drinking, I'm going to be dancing, and I wouldn't be able to go and see all the wonderful sights that I did see. So it was kind of a backwards good thing. The studio apartment, I have to say, was such a disappointment. I knew from the pictures that it wasn't going to be perfect, but the level of imperfect was just off the scale, really. Let's take noise, for example. The apartment was above an office block, and there were like a corridor of these sort of rooms. My room was right next to the flyover, which is quite noisy. Downstairs, outside the back of my window, there were industrial fans that fired off all hours of the day and night. There was no pattern to it, just whenever. The fridge was so old, the noise it made was terrifying. And that goes for the rest of the appliances. The only thing that I used, or the only two things that I used while I was there, was the kettle and the microwave. As an ex-electrician, I would have condemned everything. It was awful. So there you go. So there's lots of noise. Now when I travel, I always take earplugs. And they came in really, really useful, because you wouldn't have been able to sleep without them in that place. Oh, and I forgot as well, Friday, Saturday, Sunday nights between 10 and 3 in the morning, 10 at night and 3 in the morning, there was a nightclub downstairs as well. That one was open, because I could hear it without the earplugs. Earplugs in, fine. But oh my word, I was not a happy bunny really about the accommodation. However, having said that, it was a base. I didn't have to worry about messing it up or injuring something, breaking something. You know, it was digs. It would do. The good things about it was right opposite the supermarket and right opposite the metro station. And the metro is the way to go in Montreal. It's so easy, it's so fast, it's really clean, it's absolutely brilliant. And they've only got 4 lines, so it's actually really easy to remember where you need to be going and which direction you need to be heading in. So when I got there, I got there on a Thursday evening, and we had travelled back in time by 5 hours. But when I arrived, it was going to bedtime. So that kind of worked, because I didn't really sleep on the plane. And everything in my body, I mean, jet lag, you know, everybody gets jet lag at some point in their life when they fly. It took me until the Sunday evening to get over the flight. And in that time, from that Thursday night, well, let's call it Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I'd explored the local area. I'd found a nice cafe down the road that I could go to, which I needed to, because there was, well, the studio apartment was meant to have Wi-Fi, but it was public Wi-Fi on the building. The actual landlord had nothing to do with the Wi-Fi, and it was shit. That's all I can say about it. And one of the worst things was the telly ran on Wi-Fi. So you think to yourself, right, okay, the telly's gone down because the Wi-Fi's gone down, I'll go on my iPad. Oh, I need the Wi-Fi for my iPad. I'll go on my Kindle. I want to download a new book. Oh, I need the Wi-Fi. How do we live without Wi-Fi anymore? I mean, honestly, it was absolutely incredible. And that's why I found the nice cafe down the road, because not only did they do great coffee and it was a lovely atmosphere, but they had really good Wi-Fi. So, you know, that was good. Anyway, my system for this holiday was to do something one day and rest up on another, like the next day, and then do something the following day. And that worked really, really well. I found that I wasn't getting overly exhausted. I knew when I got home I was going to be hit by it, but while I was there, I think my brain sort of overrides kind of the tiredness when I'm doing something like that. Oh, by the way, if you're new here and I'm talking about energy and tiredness, I have ME, which absolutely floors me with exhaustion, and that's why I keep referring to tiredness, energy levels, etc, etc. So let's have a look at what I did. Here's my list. This is the actual list that I wrote when I went there. On the Monday, the first Monday, I went to St Paul's Road, which is, in one direction it's mostly art galleries, and in the other in the other direction it's kind of tourist junk shops, you know, the sort of thing where you buy your tea towel to bring home, and, you know, your fridge magnet and that sort of thing. Now, I didn't really know very much about Montreal when I arrived, especially not the fact that they tend to open their shops a lot later than we do. So when I actually got there, there wasn't an awful lot open. But as time went by, I had a good old wander around, and eventually things started to open. And I popped into quite a few art galleries, but one in particular stays in my head. And that's because they had this great system where it was a two-storey building. No, it wasn't. No, it was a three-storey building. In the basement was the actual gallery, and on the ground floor and the upper floor were studios. And the way that it worked was the resident artists made art on or with things that the general public gave them. So the day that I went, there was wood, and so there were lots of things painted on and made with wood. And it's a not-for-profit organisation, and then they sell what they make. And then they put the call out for more materials, and somebody might turn up with fabric that time, or maybe cardboard, or, you know, whatever. And I've never come across that before, and I thought that was so cool, so cool. I also, oh my goodness me, I was in heaven. Before I went, I discovered that there was a bookshop in Montreal that has a huge department of graphic novels, both in English and in French. If you are not, French, because Montreal is mostly French speaking, by the way. If you're not familiar with what a graphic novel is, it's essentially a grown-up story but drawn. So it's like a comic book, a big thick comic book, and they can cover any subject whatsoever, and I am totally in love with them, and I am trying to write my own as we speak. I've been trying to write it for years, but if I had to leave the world and leave one thing in it that I had produced, I would hope that it would be a graphic novel. This shop was absolutely amazing. It was miles away from the tube station, and it was a very hot day, and it was very sweaty and uncomfortable walking there, but I'm so glad that I went. So glad. The shop is called Drawn & Quarterly, and the day that I went, there were 3 staff in there. They were all young ladies in their 20s, I suppose, you know, early to mid-20s, with such an enormous knowledge of the graphic novels that they actually stocked. I had decided previously that I had a budget, or I had 3 books. So basically, I could have as many, well, yeah, I kind of decided 3 books, but I also had a budget in mind. And I did come away with my 3 books. I found an anthology of comics, and then 2 graphic novels. And when I took them to the desk, we had that whole conversation about, you know, where are you from? Are you here on holiday? That sort of thing. And then we started talking about graphic novels and art and illustration and all of those things. And we had a great chat, really great chat. And they actually gave me a really, really nice tote bag as a souvenir. You can buy them from the shop, but they gave me one, which was really, really sweet of them. At least that's what they said, that they gave it to me. Maybe they give them to everybody, but hey, let's pretend they gave it to me because they liked me. So that was absolutely fabulous. And they're also, I believe they're a publisher as well. Yeah, so it was well worth walking all that way. The day after, I went to the Notre Dame Basilica, which essentially is a massive church. But oh my word, the decoration in this place is stunning, absolutely stunning. I didn't take any, well, I took one picture in there, kind of to prove that I'd been there, but it was almost too holy to take pictures in. There were people on their knees praying, and you don't often see that in any church, either here or abroad. You might see an old lady tucked in a corner somewhere, but at this place people were actually properly praying. And I found out that that church has been there since the foundation of Montreal, which is just mind-boggling. I mean, not in its present form because it is massive now, but it began there. The next excursion that I did was I went to St Catherine's Road West. Now, I was living St Catherine's Road East. This St Catherine's Road is something like 11 kilometres long. So the end that I was at had the gay village, and then in the centre of town, that's when it turns into St Catherine's West, and there is a big shopping mall kind of place, like, you know, kind of like an outdoor shopping centre like we're kind of used to in this country. And I went there on a Sunday, and it was again very late opening. I thought if I go for 11 o'clock that would be great, because that's what we do in the UK, but nothing opened until midday. So again, I was somewhere where things weren't open, and I went over and I sat on some steps, and then I realised that in front of the steps there was actually like a dance thing going on, a modern dance show, I suppose, but they were rehearsing rather than doing their real thing. And there were cameras, like filming cameras being set up in two corners, and there was a music desk, and it all looked like it was going to be quite interesting. So over the road I spotted that there was a coffee shop open, so I went and got takeaway coffee. I sat on the steps, and then suddenly like loads of other people joined me on the steps, and that's what I did. I watched a modern dance production rather than going shopping or looking in the shops. I did have a look around the shopping centre eventually, and it turned out to be one of those places where it was all label stuff, and it was all really quite expensive and boutiquey and really not my cup of tea. And the last thing that I went to was the Archaeology Museum. And I went there for a particular reason, apart from the fact that I love a good museum. Being me, I would. They had a show, I wanted to call it then, an exhibition about the Vikings. And who loves the Vikings? So it was a must do, and it was so good. It was really fabulous, really fab. I learnt a lot. I took a lot of pictures, and I walked away. Actually, you know, when you go to the gift shop afterwards, I did buy the Viking Experience book that they produced, just because I don't want to forget the experience, because it was so good. Please excuse me, we need an Aardvark slurp. So that was sort of it then. I had a rest day, and then also a bit of packing, and then the next day I went home. And on the way back, two things. First of all, we'll talk about something on the plane, and then we'll get to the story about Raphael. On the plane, there were, sitting right next to me across the aisle, a couple of Orthodox Jewish young men. I would say that one of them was about 15, 16, the other maybe around 18, 19. and in other parts of the plane there are a couple more. You know, who knows where they were going. Well, they were obviously flying to Heathrow, but for what, I don't know. But it was so intriguing because obviously, being Orthodox Jews, they have got a structure that they have to follow, a prayer structure, and a way of living, a way of eating, and, you know, everything is different. They absolutely engaged my interest for hours on that plane. There was a slight issue at one point because the younger lad left his reading light on. It was like the sun was shining in the middle of the night, but we'll forgive him. I had a hood on. In fact, I had this hoodie on, so I did this. So it covered the old eyes, and then, you know, was okay a bit then. Now then, Raphael. Raphael is a lovely elderly gentleman who works for British Airways at the Canadian airport. Now, I met him on my way into Canada, and he was my special assistant. I don't think he was meant to be, but he became him because I couldn't find the guy I was meant to be meeting. You know, I couldn't see them at all, and I was a bit worried, and he had actually seen me with my lanyard on. I got a big lanyard that says I am autistic all over it, and he asked me if I needed help, and I said I am meant to be meeting a special assistance person, but I don't know where they are. And he said, don't you worry, I'll look after you. And he was the nicest guy ever. He was the sort of man you want to be your granddad. He helped me with the paperwork side of things, getting through the border control. They have a very interesting thing. You have to scan your passport on a machine and then input various bits of information. And without him there, it would have been quite scary, and I don't think I would have enjoyed it at all. But he was lovely. He even got my suitcase off the thing, the conveyor belt for me. And I said, oh, you know, my taxi guy has just texted me, so, you know, I can go and get my taxi. And he said, no, I'm waiting with you. I'm waiting with you till you get in your taxi. So from door to door, the guy was absolutely amazing. And then bizarrely, on the way back, he was on shift again. And he was like, oh, it's you. And I was like, hello, hi, how are you? And we shook hands. And he took me to where I needed to be for the gate in Montreal. And just as we were loading up onto the passenger bus that takes you to the aeroplane, he jumped on and insisted that he took a photo of me with him. And I kind of had wanted to take a photo of him, and I was a bit embarrassed to ask, but because he did it, I did it. So I will put a picture of Raphael here. So yeah, there we are. A lovely, lovely ending to a lovely, lovely holiday. And that's kind of it. So I've just spent the last week, is it week? I don't know if it's a week or 2 weeks, I can't remember. But I'm recovered. I am over it now. That's bugging me. I've got to find out if it was a week or 2 weeks. Yeah, it was a week ago. So I've spent quite a lot of time getting over that and just kind of settling down, getting into the saddle again, getting into the routine, and looking forward to my next adventure, whenever and whatever that will be.